And now we're back at it again with more of the Vlog-A-Thon 5.0. So let's just piece a few things together. I've talked about various pieces of my content. I've talked a bit about what kind of money have I been spending on, what have I been doing with my own personal life, and of course, the kind of stuff I have managed to do in nearly 2 years since the last time I've done the Vlog-A-Thon at any given moment. But for this installment of the Vlog-A-Thon, let's talk a bit about trips. Because in the last installment, I've talked a bit about how I've had a lot of money thanks to all the new part-time work and full-time work that I was able to become a part of. With all the nice stuff I've been able to afford thanks to all that money I've gotten raked in to my own savings. All the stuff I basically spent this money on surely has been quite an adventure of a lifetime, but maybe the biggest part of it is the fact that this year alone, at least in comparison to other years I've had, like in 2018 for example, 14 states in the entire union I've managed to visit by road or possibly anything else. But that's only because in 2018, if you're all familiar with my little brother, pretty much, then you know the fact that he's done a lot of sports. And I even have recorded some parts. Like when we went down to the state of Ohio. We spent a few nights out there, and we definitely had ourselves some nice fun in any given moments that you might be familiar with by this point. There's also a lot of pictures that I've taken, videos I've taken, that I've uploaded to social media of all kinds, including Twitter and Instagram. But maybe talking about just 2018 isn't all that there is to offer on that part. Why don't we get to talk about how this year has really reflected on in comparison? Because starting with January 2022, I sure have had more than just a good vibe of simply knowing that things were going to take a turn for the better, and I knew firsthand that things would actually improve. Look at it from this point. 10 months later, here we are at a point where it actually is not only just true, but we're actually in a spot where we can safely assume or just simply know that we're actually going to be in a much more better, solid, and more aware position in our lives. But I will at least point out the many good things that have happened here in this year alone is only just a tiny fraction that pretty much just goes to show every single year has opportunities down the line. Last year, I tried to have a few opportunities here and there, tried to simply get some relaxation away from the initial devastation that had happened in 2020 with the pandemic and eventually the combination of civil unrest, deaths, destruction, vandalism, and anything else that could possibly happen. So, of course, 2020 had its cons, but in a pinch, it definitely had a lot of pros that simply rose up because of these problems. 2021, on the other hand, is pretty much the complete opposite. A lot of you have actually talked to me on social media before, simply pointing out the huge difference between both of these years, as if I've swapped my outlook on those years. My initial rage and my dislike for such a year like 2021 should have applied to 2020, but it is instead to 2021, and I clearly gave a very solid and huge list of reasons as to why that's the case. Whereas in 2020, I am still going to simply remain as is. It was a pretty good year. Nothing that great, but it definitely was a lot better than a good majority of other years I've had. Because the key word here is opportunity. So, maybe what we're really looking at here is just what happens in each and every year, regardless of if it's good or bad. Now, a lot of you could argue in many ways, but I simply am going to just remain by my initial outlook because this is just simply the facts. I even gave a nice big list of reasons why 2020 was actually better than 2021 at any given moment in time, but you're probably going to wonder exactly what I have to say about this year, 2022. Well, first of all, it definitely started off pretty well. Nothing that great, but then again, compared to 2021, where in just the first 3 months alone, what did we get out of it? The highest known recorded cases in pandemic-related deaths, a massive insurrection that completely washed away America and all that is, and a million other things. I could go into detail on those at any given moment, but I've already done that. 2 hours worth of my time I've wasted sitting in front of this camera in another location pretty much, because this backdrop ain't the same one, along with a different outfit. So all of that is pretty much different compared to what's happening today. Here with the Vlog-A-Thon 5.0, it's a moment in time where I'm going to be talking about what's happening for this year. It's turning out to be pretty darn well. And so maybe this part of the Vlog-A-Thon is not necessarily going to be just about the trips, but about what kind of outlooks have I had in recent years. So maybe I'll have to put this on the next installment, but trips wise, I've definitely had some really darn good times throughout this whole year alone. And I'll definitely be sure to talk about more of that stuff in the next installment of the Vlog-A-Thon. So do be sure to stick around for stuff that I'll have on the channel very soon. Until then, see ya next time.